All right, folks, today we are going to discuss plateaus. Plateaus, what they are, how to get through them. We've had some really good answers on the poll for this week, so I really want to dig into a few of those. We had some nice some nice discussion there about what we all do. How does everyone deal with those plateaus? So I'm going to keep an eye on the comments here. Let's see, I'm using a different software today to try to stream, so hopefully this does come through nice and smooth. Now, first thing, I'd really like for everyone to think of someone who is experiencing some challenges around their health, their fitness, people who maybe have been trying to accomplish something, whether it's climbing a mountain, losing some weight, just feeling a bit less winded, any of these things. We hear about it all the time from our friends, and if you can think of anybody like that, invite them to the group. Invite them in, be like, hey, come in. There's lots of good conversation, supportive people here. Invite them in, and then on Fridays, I'm going to welcome everybody in, and I'd like, if you can put it to them nicely, for them to share what their challenge is and see if we can all come together and find some solutions for that. So invite a friend this week, and let's all try just to help out as much as we can to support those that are having some challenges. So let's think together this week about plateaus. So my poll on Monday was, how do you handle setbacks or plateaus in your fitness progress? And so for those that don't understand what a plateau is essentially just a point where we've been progressing, and then we get to a level where progress no longer happens. Either that or it no longer happens at the same rate we were used to. There's a few things that go into that, though. It's not just simply, oh, we need to change everything up. Persistence is important. But a big part of what dictates when and how we plateau is called training age. And training age is not how old you are. Training age is about how quickly or linearly you adapt to training. So a novice, we have 3 training ages: novice, intermediate, and advanced. A novice is someone who can go into the gym, do whatever, and get fitter, leaner, stronger, more jacked every time they go in. If you're on a nice, intelligent program, you're going to see continuous improvement every week in terms of reps or weight, whatever your metrics are. A novice adapts very quickly. And so we only have like 6 months of that. Those are your newbie gains, your beginner gains. And that's one thing we have to keep in mind, is that once you're past that phase with your training, you're not going to see results like that. So the more advanced you get, the slower the adaptations happen and the less linear the process. So if you are, say, a novice and you're training and you're seeing progress go like this, as an intermediate, you might see progress go more like this. So shallower slope. You're not seeing progress every week, or not as much, and it's a little bit smaller, still fairly consistent. You're still seeing gains, but it's a slower process. The more advanced you get, progress doesn't happen in a linear fashion like this anymore. Progress goes like this. And so we have these plateaus that require passing through to gain that little bit. And so if we're talking about strength athletes, a strength athlete in the advanced training phase might see 2.5 to 5 kilos put onto one of their major lifts after 6 months to a year's work. A novice will see that from session to session or more. And so the closer you are to your maximum personal and genetic capacity, the slower your gains happen. And that's normal. And people who see those plateaus as a reason to just throw everything out the window and do something completely different are going to find that they'll never pass those plateaus. They just keep reaching the same plateau. And so we did have some conversation around that, but let's take a look at what people are doing in general. So let's see here. We've had some people answer, I stop training every time, which of course means you never get past that plateau. Some people keep doing the same thing and hope for the best, which, I mean, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and hoping for a different result. And the majority of people said it's just a challenge to overcome. And that is the correct answer. But how we overcome it is the hard part. It's not easy. So Isaac said that, when he hits a plateau, he tries to mix things up, change times, exercise routines, weights, etc. So depending on what we're classifying as a plateau and what we are measuring as our indicators of success, that may work. You might need to mix things up. But generally speaking, so we continued with that conversation, and he brought up muscular familiarity. And we do have muscular familiarity in the terms of training and intensity, but we don't have it in terms of, my body's used to doing this exercise, so it no longer adapts. Well, no, it's used to doing that exercise in the same fashion. This is how people who are powerlifters or Olympic weightlifters or strongmen can do the same exercises year in, year out and get stronger and stronger. If you're trying to deadlift something off the floor, not deadlifting isn't really going to make you stronger at deadlifting. If you hit a plateau at deadlifting, you might need to add in some more accessories. You might need a deload or some rest, some sort of planned recovery. But you don't need to just stop deadlifting. There's variations you might use. But we don't go, well, I'm not getting stronger at deadlifting. I need to do more of this or more of that to get better at it. No, you need to change some of the parameters around the training. You might need more accessory work. You have to figure out where the failure to progress is happening. Maybe it's your hamstrings, maybe it's your quads, maybe it's your glutes, maybe it's your technique. You can bring those up, but you still have to maintain the quality of movement and the precision of your ability to perform it. It's a specialized lift, and you can't get stronger at it past a certain point without spending forever on it. Hundreds, thousands of hours mastering it. So it kind of comes back to the muscular confusion idea. It's not really real. Muscular confusion is not a real thing. You're just changing the parameters of what you're measuring. And that doesn't really get us too far towards where we're actually trying to get in the long run. So one of the things we have to do is figure out what it is we're trying to measure. What else do we hear? So we had some pretty challenging answers, getting disappointed with yourself and going off track for a while. Then you don't pass that plateau. And, it comes down to self-esteem sometimes. And at a certain point, you are responsible for you and how you act. And even though there are going to be innate triggers or things that we just have a hard time with, until you say, no, I can do this, I believe that I can do this, I'm going to show myself I can do this, you're going to run into the same problem. You're going to go, I didn't do this, so now I'm going to go do something else and feel bad about it and move on to a new goal, or come back at some point and still be disappointed that you haven't moved beyond it. And that's where getting some help helps. So having everything from a hype man to an accountability buddy to professional help in terms of your mental health, so many different mindset games and systems and books and podcasts and coaches. Like, all these things can help. You just got to figure out what the major issue is and work with someone, if you can't do it yourself, to get you past that. But that takes, first of all, belief that you can do it, even if you have to fake it until you do have that real belief. Responsibility for what you do with yourself. And then, if you can, find support. Find support and find community of people that can help you. And that's what I'm hoping. That's what I'm seeing with this community, to Become Strong for Life group. Like, that is the idea, is if people are like, man, I can't get through this, throw it in the group and let's talk about it. I'm always on here trying to help out with answers, but we got lots of other people with lots of good experiences too. So that's something we have to keep in mind. Other stuff, people just take a break. Some people aren't super end goal oriented. I'm pretty end goal oriented in most respects. We had some issues where people were just being very unsustainable with how they train and setting outlandish goals for himself, which is kind of great, but not if it leads to ultimately not achieving any of them. Generally speaking, dealing with plateaus is a question of what we call periodization. Periodization is having planned changes in intensity in your program that allow you to prevent things like fatigue, burnout, and plateaus. Generally, a plateau happens when you've reached your capacity at some activity. And that could be you're not getting enough rest, you're not training in the right way, it's not the right movements, you're not fueling right. All these things come into play. And it happens the same in life. You can have plateaus in your business. You can have plateaus in your education. You can have plateaus in anything that you can measure. You're not always going to have perpetual growth. That's not a healthy thing either. It'd be cool if you could do it in a healthy way, but there will be plateaus naturally, and that means that we need to usually look at how we're nourishing ourselves, look at how we're recovering, and look at our trajectory and see if our plan is sustainable. And this is where having quality coaching around periodization and planned deloads, which all my clients can attest to, planned deloads usually happen pretty close to when your fatigue is maximizing. And everything in training is about that balance between how much fatigue you can handle and how much training you can handle. And ultimately, if fatigue and training go up, you're going to run into problems. So finding a bit of balance there. Let me just check and see if there's been any other questions that I can get involved with. Okay, that's looking pretty good. So other things I want to chat about in the group. So we've had some really cool posts this week. Obviously, we've had a big discussion around foods that people think are delicious, but some of us do not. I'm okay with celery now. Like, I'm not going to go out of my way, but it's not a great thing. It's just crunch with like strings in it. You can pile it up with other things, but usually I'd just rather eat those other things. I was a little surprised about the rice thing, but I can see that being a textural issue. But Greg and Andrew have both been posting some awesome things this week. Greg, shout out to Greg, who is one of my clients. He's been killing it in the cardio and smashing out those 7-minute Ks pretty consistently. He's getting some great distance. So that's really awesome. And then Andrew is abroad in Saudi Arabia, and he's posted some awesome little updates about his training and some of the gyms he's using. And that's one of my favorite things to do when I'm abroad too, or traveling anywhere, is check out local gyms. Like, what do you got there? What's this? What's this machine? There's some really cool, some of my favorites are like really old, dingy bodybuilder gyms. But not like real bodybuilder gyms, but like YMCAs and like community centers that just happen to have like a bunch of 1980s bodybuilding equipment in the basement. Because you're like, what is this? Why does the cable do this? Like, what is this machine? You don't see them anymore. So they're fun. So Andrew's been posting some cool stuff. And if any of you are like, how do you deal with your food? How do you deal with your training? How do you do whatever while traveling and trying to stay in shape? Ask questions. Hit him up on those posts. He's got a lot of advice there. I did want to shout out to a few more clients who are doing awesome this week. Pam, who I know is in the group as well, is 4 kilos down. I'm pretty sure we only started about 8 weeks ago. So that's 500 grams a week. That's a really good, sustainable weight loss. So those of you that are in the other part of the world, that's about a pound a week. Consistent and sustainable. It's great. That's awesome. Sean, who lives up in Brisbane, is doing a lot of physical labor and still balancing his training and his family and everything else he's trying to do with his life. So great job to Sean and trying to, and successfully so far, managing that balance and also increasing his food intake and sleep, and just, he's killing it up there. And speaking of consistency, Erica, I believe is in this group as well, one of my clients, is just doing great with her consistency. So we've had a couple weeks of just nothing but greens, and greens is activities or workouts ticked off in the True Coach program that I work with. And she's just been killing it these last couple of weeks, and that's awesome to see. I know it was it's been a challenge, and she's just greens, all greens, lots of wins. And that's just awesome to see, like, it makes me happy. That makes me happy as a coach to see people overcoming their challenges, finding that balance, and getting all the greens. So great job there. And thanks for everybody who's been participating this week in the group. If you have thoughts or questions on this, please go ahead and throw them in the comments, or put up your wins and stories, put up your challenges, and let's discuss them and try to work through them. And if you need some extra help and you want to talk about how to get you from where you're at to where you want to be, get in touch. Shoot me a message, email, call me, whatever you like. I'm happy to chat about those things, and let's just have a conversation. If you're struggling to figure out where you need to go or what to do to get where you need to be, let's chat.